Cancer 10, a large diamond, not completely cut. So we're using a diamond here as a metaphor for who we are. And the diamond is found as a very uninteresting chunk of glass, and it is shaped and polished and cut and made to become something which is held to be an emblem of beauty. And of course, with beauty goes power. So we're discussing the process by which we become beautiful and powerful people. That process requires the skill and art necessary for the diamond cutter to work on something which is very difficult to work with. The diamond is the hardest substance that there is, and this is equated to the stubbornness of the ego. To change who we are, what we are, how we present ourselves to the world, so that our full beauty can shine, our total power can influence the world. This is not an easy task, perhaps the most challenging of all the tasks that we encounter. So how do we develop this skill, this art, in order to be able to polish ourselves? Well, later in life we can polish ourselves to the nth degree, but to get to that ability for us to work on ourselves fully, we need training. And we have to be trained by somebody who knows how to train. We're talking about spiritual teachers here. And this is a category of person which is most misunderstood, I would say, in the West. Whereas in India, the guru figure is perhaps the one who receives the greatest respect of anyone in the whole country. It's a very high principle, the principle of being able to teach someone to awaken. And yet the word in the West is absolutely misused or ridiculed. If somebody is a guru, they might be a guru of business management. It's ridiculous. And if somebody is a workshop leader, they might be called guru as a form of disrespect, taking the mickey out of them. The word guru is indicating the capacity of a person to bring another person into a heightened state of awareness such that they awaken to their potential. This is the process that we're going through. So in order to take this task seriously of spiritual development, we do need to find someone that we can work with, or who can work with us. And probably that goes in stages. This is my personal experience. I would happily say that I found one teacher and learned a huge amount from that teacher. And then his ability was so good that I learned what there was to teach, what he had to teach me. So to go further, I would need to find, and I did find, another teacher. And I learned what he had to teach me, and then another one, and then she taught me something that I needed to know, and then another. Not a huge amount, not as though I was casual about this, but somebody who's really pushing forward will probably need to move from one to another. I would say I had 4 major teachers in life. And this is the kind of number that is probably right. One works, of course, if you're in a place where you have a very definite line of personal development, then one teacher is enough if you choose the right one. But the relationship between a teacher and a student needs to be relatively close. The best teachers for you are the ones that are a little bit further along in the process of awakening. If you go to a teacher just too high, too far above you, most of what the teacher is trying to give you will be wasted. You won't get it. And you need somebody who's a little bit further along than you, because they need to have made the same mistakes that you're making and have learned from them. Now, the teacher's first job is to teach you how to learn. And it's not an easy task to teach somebody how to learn. To learn, you need to be open to the fact that you don't know, that this person does know, and that you can learn the difference between those two states of being. So a little bit of humility is required, and a lot of respect. If you're being told something which you find to be objectionable or wrong or whatever, it is not appropriate really to argue or even to disbelieve. The appropriate thing to do is to hold that little bit of information which you're unable presently to assimilate in abeyance. You just hold it in your head for years and years if necessary, thinking, well, that teacher was pretty impressive, but I was told this and I just don't agree with that. And eventually you will either come to agree with it or come to disagree with it finally in the end. And if you disagree with it finally, then you're rejecting your teacher. Let's be clear about that. You have to trust that the teacher is speaking what you need to hear. And if you can't trust that teacher, then you don't want that teacher, because trusting your teacher is a requirement. It's a necessary condition. If you approach this question with a serious, committed attitude that you're undergoing training, the same way that you would if you were putting yourself in the hands of a sports trainer. I wouldn't argue with my rugby trainer, certainly not. Or a school teacher. Respect is less obvious nowadays in school than once it was, but we had that attitude of respecting the office of a teacher, not necessarily the person so much, but the office of a teacher. And this is becoming very unpopular in the world today, which is a shame. It's lovely. Respect is a lovely quality. It is just graceful and beautiful, and it is mutual. The teacher, when respected, will respect the student. It's a mutual thing. There's no winning or losing going on. If you find a teacher that gets off on your humility, then cast the teacher aside. That's not a real teacher. The teacher insists upon a measure of humility in order to get the job done, and should not glorify himself according to how much he can insist that his students are humble. And I've come across that so often, where a teacher is able to dominate the student group to a point where they're trying to raise him above his station into a godlike level. It's just nonsense. And it serves the teacher's ego rather better than it serves the student's need for training. Now, when we develop this power and beauty of the polished diamond, then we have influence in the world. If your influence in the world does not increase, then you're not going anywhere. You're not progressing spiritually. One of the determinants of spiritual progression is that your influence increases. Now, I'm not referring to positions of power or money or anything like that. This is what's called soft power in today's jargon. Soft power is when really you do nothing. You make no assertive claims on the world, and yet people somehow tend to listen to you more. They tend to take your suggestions more seriously. They perhaps ask you for advice if they're in the middle of a difficult decision or whatever. You find yourself to be listened to. Now, if that is not developing, then you're not developing. And if you're not developing, well, then your teacher is not teaching you anything. So progress to another. Sometimes we can take our teachings from books and videos and so on. Very useful, very helpful indeed, and yet not enough. And the reason is that something passes between the teacher and the student which is not able to be encapsulated within the teachings of a video or a book. It is to do with, two things really. First of all, response to feedback. If the teacher says something to you, and you respond in a blank kind of way, then the teacher can say it differently. So the teacher knows whether or not you're listening, whether you're actually understanding, whether the words make a difference. You can see it. There's physical evidence as well as psychic ability to understand whether you're understood. The second thing, though, is perhaps more important, and that is the energy of charisma. Charisma is a particular form of magnetism which emanates from one who knows towards one who wants to know. It's the passing of knowledge by osmosis. It's a mystery. It cannot be explained. It can only be felt and experienced by the student. You need that, or you won't get very far.